Our final discussion of the day is called Moving Forward, and it's going to be an open discussion about what we want to see happen in order to move forward to reduce the risk of musculoskeletal injuries. To effect change, it's not an individual, an organizational, or societal responsibility. It needs to be at all levels.
The media is one of the biggest hurdles out there. They truly need to understand what they're reporting on and not just the result of one study.
These one-study news stories can often result in people being misled. It's much like the butter versus margarine debate. Every couple of months we hear that one's better than the other for you. And as a result, there needs to be more research given when reporting a story. Now, of course, the most current one is the sit-stand stations. Back in 2015 and 2016, it first came out that smoking or sitting is the new smoking. It's going to kill you. But then a couple years later, another study came out that said now standing is going to kill me. All these were based on simple one-study projects that the media ran with because it sounded good. And of course, it led to a lot of confusion with respect to employees, employers, and also purchasing.
The big problem as well is the word ergonomic. Now, I did a talk a couple years ago on ergonomic yes, no, or maybe, for those of you that remember it. There's no legislation on the use of the word ergonomic. Now, it's often a catchphrase used by designers and companies to get you to buy their product. Now, people will often buy something that's labeled ergonomic, and it turns out it can actually cause more harm than good. So you really need to try before you buy. Consult with an ergonomist before purchasing. Is this truly ergonomic? So, example from a couple years ago, the flimsy tippy keyboard tray, the ergonomic food chopper that my wife came home with, the ergonomic toothbrush, $9 toothbrush for 9 minutes of use a day, ergonomic nail clippers that have little foam padding, so some decided that's ergonomic. I always use the definition, the big fancy one. It's the science of studying people at work and designing the working environment to ensure they can be safe, healthy, effective, and comfortable. Shorter one, fit the job to the worker, not the worker to the job. Or my simple one, adjustability. You can't adjust anything with that. It's foam on a nail clipper. And so as a result, you'll pay 3 times the price for those nail clippers because they're ergonomic. Research. Now, research, you got to look at things like who's funding the actual study. Does anyone remember, this is going way back, Home Depot, all the workers had to wear back belts. Anyone remember that? Well, a study was done, funded by Home Depot, on back belts to see if they reduced the risk of injury. Well, yeah, the results showed a reduction in injury. That's what the research said. What did we actually find out? Workers were actually getting more hurt because they're wearing these elastic bands basically around their waist, and they think, I'm wearing this, I'm protected, I can lift more. Now, Home Depot made a policy. Every employee must wear a back belt. So, what does that mean? I've seen have people hang it from their belt loop. They wore it. They were wearing it. So, but they funded that study, and it was actually skewed because of the results they wanted to get. So, no, you got to look at who's funding the research, who's doing the research. So much research duplicates each other. In the example I've got in the square, I did a search for carpal tunnel syndrome and hypothyroidism, and there were 17,000 results that came up. Do you really need 17,000 studies to show the same thing? No, Katie's research, as I said, that's moving forward. That's groundbreaking. Not only was she talking about something new, it's applicable for the compensation system, it's applicable for prevention, it's got real-world applications, as opposed to just doing research for the sake. I mean, I hear about, I listen to CBC a lot, and I hear about some of these research that are going on, and sometimes I just gotta shake my head, like nope, no, I'm not going to go to the back guano, but I mean, no, it's what? But there's so many lack of real-world applications for a lot of research being done. You need to have that prevention or that use that's going to be applicable to society. Just doing it for the sake of doing it without it going further is going to lead to us going nowhere. Now, what about doing research and review of products? Do they do what they say they do? The ergonomic food chopper. Is it really going to reduce my ergonomic risk factors? No, that would be a really good real world. Or why aren't companies doing research and testing their products before they put the ergonomic label on it and release it to the general public? No, the Association of Canadian Ergonomists, I was talking to, we actually had our national conference in Sudbury this October, and a bunch of us were talking about why, as a national body, are we not giving a stamp of approval on products that are being labeled ergonomic? No. Workplace, in terms of ergonomic requests or hygiene requests, there's a delay of assessments. Many workplaces require a worker to have a physician's note first before they can get an assessment done. Well, that's reactive. That's not proactive. Proactive is getting to the worker before they get hurt. If I'm going to a doctor to get a note, I'm already in pain. I'm already in discomfort. I've already been injured. So what does that solve? Also, though, workers need to report problems. If you're working through pain in hopes it gets better, it doesn't unless you address the actual cause of the problem. So as a result, sitting there suffering isn't going to fix the issue. You need to come forward. That's why we have health and safety committees and health and safety reps, because they're there to help us get through these issues. Now, what do you think in the next 20 years we should be looking at, we should be doing with respect to truly reducing the rates of MSDs? So I want to open it up because I really want to hear what you guys think we can do, just so we can actually maybe down the road do a checkup and see, have we met any of these goals? So let's open it up. Anyone have any ideas, suggestions? It can be individually, health and safety-wise, company-wise, society-wise, provincially, federally, globally, whatever you want.
An open discussion was held amongst the presenters, attendees in the audience, and those online. The following slides outline the results of the discussion and brainstorming sessions. Topics that were raised included reporting of injuries, directions for the workplace, suggestions for manufacturing, purchasing ideas, legislation, tool development needs, directions for research, importance of communication, suggestions at the individual level, industry recommendations, and the role of experts. Discussion under reporting of injuries included increased consequences to non-compliant employers, but at the same time, employees must also take ownership when they fail to report an injury or accident. There needs to be increased knowledge on employees' part to report injuries and strain to the health and safety representatives or management in order that they know how to fix jobs and that problems exist. There's an offset where employers felt that they need to know how to be able to change the mindset of employees to encourage them to be able to come forward without a fear of consequence. It was found that employers should start at the beginning with reviewing engineering and incident reports to determine where problems exist. A question was raised whether statistics from WSIB are truly reliable, since they are normally just based on accepted claims and not on the number of reports and claims filed to them. The importance of communication amongst all workplace parties was stressed, and as well as the importance of developing trust with no fear of consequences within the workplace environment. Direction for the workplace included they need to recognize that changes to one aspect of a work area will affect another. Making a slight change can increase the risk of injury for a neighboring part. If equipment is broken, it shouldn't be used at all. If the chair is broken, get it out of circulation. If heavy equipment with broken shocks is being used, get it repaired. This also needs to be reported to supervisors so that these changes can be done. Workers need to be part of the change process. Who knows the job and demands more than those doing it? Workers should be receptive to change, even if it results in an alteration of how their work is performed, because ultimately it will reduce their risk of injury. Changes should be introduced gradually. Pick one area, one task to start making changes at. Review the success. Share the success amongst the workplaces and workers, and then building on that, move on to the next task or area. What a worker wants is not always the best. For example, someone brought up an exercise ball. These can actually increase the risk of injury, resulting in fatigue of the back muscles, as well as overstimulation of them that can result in an injury when going to lift and perform tasks. Also, we need to be aware of workers who are relying on the media, such as sitting as the new smoking. Now, someone just wanting a sit-stand workstation may not be the best for them. Examples included a workplace where an employee who suffered from constant vertigo wanted a sit-stand station. For suggestions for manufacturing, it was felt that manufacturers should involve those who purchase their equipment in their design process, such as having a focus group, and they also need to consider ergonomic needs to avoid ineffective equipment or even products that are labeled ergonomic that truly are not. It was recognized that cost is a factor in design. It was mentioned during the discussion, why are those plastic feet still on many keyboard trays? And the answer was that it costs money to change the design. Companies should set their own standards if none exist that equipment should meet. So, for example, it was mentioned that a heavy-duty piece of equipment should have a vibration level of no more than that a manufacturer should have to meet in order to be allowed to have the product on site. It was also mentioned that manufacturers who truly work with companies to meet their needs, instead of those who say this is our product and no changes will be made, should be promoted, not only amongst industry, but across sectors. Manufacturers should make all their products adjustable to be able to fit the physical dimensions and needs of those using it. Manufacturers should also work with experts to see if their idea or products will truly reduce the risk of injury prior to developing it. They also should avoid the use of the term ergonomic, and if it's not really true, since it reduces their reliability as a supplier and manufacturer of products to the general public. With respect to purchasing, the company needs to indicate or send company standards to manufacturers with what the requirements are. Often manufacturers don't know what the needs of their clients truly are. When adding a new piece of equipment, workplaces also need to be aware that they could be increasing their risk for another area or worker by making such changes. They should buy equipment that is only adjustable to be able to fit the needs of individual workers. Only buy from companies willing to work with the workplace or that have truly adjustable features. Buy from companies that use the proper use of the term ergonomic for products. Have a review of products to see if they are truly ergonomic, and consult with an ergonomist prior to purchasing any equipment to see if it truly will reduce the risk of injury. Comments regarding legislation included, with ergonomics regulations and/or amended provisions for sector regulations, it would mandate action and prevention by design mindset. Looking at other areas such as California, Michigan, as well as other provinces that have enforceable laws, would be a good starting point to look at developing legislation for Ontario. By using the work of other provinces or countries, we can build upon and improve what they have in place. One also needs to be aware that the current provincial government's philosophy is reducing regulatory burden and red tape, so it's likely that to add regulation, we need to think differently. We need to ensure that small workplaces have legally required occupational health and safety reps, as per the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and provide mandatory training that would help build the overall occupational and health and safety capacity. Having detailed policies and procedures can help a workplace, but they're often ineffective without enforcement and follow through from management and the Joint Health and Safety Committee. Refusal to develop legislation is often used as an excuse that ergonomics is actually too expensive, when changes can actually be made in the workplace at very reduced costs, if any often. Provincial bodies, such as the Chief Prevention Office, could also be mandating and calling for standards and legislation instead of just highlighting areas of focus where attention should be given. It's often difficult to focus attention on a problem if there's actually no way to enforce or legislate how these changes can actually be made. Often, it can be very hard to make a standard across so many industries with a set number, like you shall lift no more than this amount of weight. Instead, could legislation not make comments like, ensure all products are adjustable to meet the dimensions and needs of workers? Lift what you feel you can safely lift. Experts in the field of ergonomics themselves should be trying to make changes, such as researchers, professors, and ergonomists, as well as professional associations. All levels need to recognize the importance of a standard or legislation and have a voice in its development. Employers, workers, unions, researchers, ergonomists, and manufacturers. Feedback prior to any implementation of any legislation or policy is also very important. There needs to be a commitment from government to actually move forward and make changes. Experts themselves can show legislation does not result in more cost to employers using the economics of ergonomics explanation. Have experts form a committee prior to proposed changes being made by the government and stakeholders as a resource. Stakeholders often need to think differently to make changes depending on the political climate. Are tools easy to use and readily available to workplace parties to measure both risk and affect change? Proper tools need to be available for workplaces and ergonomists to reduce injuries. They should be able to evaluate whether one change can affect another. Any tool or document needs to be updated on a regular basis. Are tools reaching those who need them, for example, small workplaces? And make tools that are easy to use, results that are simple to understand, and also are easy to implement changes with. It was stressed the need for practical research. Research needs to have real-world implications. Stop redoing the same type of studies. What is already known is known. Move forward and build on it. The review process for proposals should be more strict to ensure future funded studies are not fluff to appease stakeholders and can make change. Field research is more useful and specific than just mocking up a situation in a lab, and funding bodies should ensure that any research proposal can be implemented and have real-world applications. Communication is important amongst workplace parties and also across industries and sectors to be able to recommend good suppliers, tools, programs. It's also important across all levels of purchasing, companies, manufacturers, and users of equipment to address change. It was stressed that one person, one voice can make a change, citing Catherine Fennick as an example with her development of RSI Day that has actually lasted over 20 years. The individual needs to be open and receptive of change. If you're experiencing discomfort by having someone make recommendations to you, to refuse to do it is just going to make your situation worse. And it's important to be part of the process, or at least have a representative who's representing you to be part of the change process. For industry, share your successes to peers, other companies, other locations, across sectors. If you make changes that have an improvement to the task or reduce the risk of injury, communicate it via emails, trade shows, conferences. Share the successes. If it can benefit you and reduce the risk of injury, then promote it to reduce the risk of injury and benefit all workers. Experts have a very strong role in reviewing, developing, and sharing tools for workplaces. There should be a very strong role and movement towards reviewing of equipment, especially those using the word ergonomic. Develop tips and trick documents. Increase awareness of issues, products, and topics through webinars. Associations like the Association of Canadian Ergonomists should review products to ensure that they are meeting ergonomic standards. It's important to recognize that experts themselves need to be careful when they're reviewing a product for fear of backlash from a manufacturer or a large business that could turn around and sue them. As a result, having a supporting body like an association or Canadian Standards Association or product review companies themselves behind to back the expert is important. This could ensure that they can be unbiased and be able to say what is truly needed when looking and reviewing a product. Any tool or document needs to be updated on a regular basis. Ensure tools that you develop reach those who need them, small businesses, injured and vulnerable workers. And make tools easy to use and results that are easy to understand and simple to make changes with.